I want to tell you what the Germans did to us after they conquered Holland.
And that was when? How old were you when they came in?
I think it was 1939.
Do you remember it?
I remember it.
What did
Yes,
you see?
Because it was a very short, nondescript war because Holland was not equipped in any way to fight the Germans. So it was very short.
Did you see, do you remember seeing tanks or soldiers or?
I remember seeing soldiers because in Maastricht there was a place called the Kaserne, which is a military, kind of a military area.
Okay.
Like a military, not a base, but a place where soldiers would be. And so the Germans took that over almost immediately. But in connection with the Jewish community, the Germans, from my point of view, have always been very methodical, very scientific in everything that they did, very planned. So they didn't destroy the Jewish community just like that and take us away and say goodbye. They had a method. First, they took away all telephones from the Jews. Jews, no more telephones, can't communicate. Then they took away the radios, so we should not know what's going on in the rest of the world. Then they took away the cars. And that was the end of my dad's being able to make a living because he traveled with that car. And I remember I believe it was a Chevrolet, but I'm not sure. So those things were done. Then the next step was to forbid us to go to public schools. The kids could no longer go to public school. So the Jewish community did what they would be expected to do. They formed their own school, small school, Jewish teachers. One of the teachers was a woman who was the daughter of the man that was put in charge by the Germans of all the Jewish community. And this man, we think because he wanted to stay alive, made up the lists of Jews for the Germans so that to take them away to Westerbork. One of these, and his daughter was one of the teachers. Now you have to know that the United States has interesting laws. My mother is an American citizen. My father is not. I'm not automatically, because the law was that if you're born to an American citizen in a foreign country, you're not an automatic American citizen. Then they changed the law.
That's right.
And my brother and Hannah, Nathan and Hannah, were automatic citizens.
So you were born before that law was changed, and they were born after it.
Correct. And then when Edie was born, the law had turned back again.
Oh my goodness.
So Edie and I were not automatic citizens, and the two middle ones were, which meant that my father and I, and not Edie because he was too young, my father and I had to wear the Jewish star.
But your other siblings didn't?
And the other siblings didn't, and my mother didn't.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was amazing. But what was bad was that this woman teacher noticed that the two of us were not wearing Jewish stars. And she confronted us and she said to us, if you show up in this school again without your Jewish star, I'm talking about the other two,
right,
I will report you. to the Germans. So now we have a dilemma, right? Of course, they showed up without the Jewish sign. I want you to also, one phenomenal memory I have,
Yeah.
walking to school, to that school, with a Jewish star. One morning, I'm walking on the sidewalk. In Holland, a lot of people use bicycles
That's right.
for transportation. So here's this man going to his job in a suit and a hat. He had a suit and a hat on. And he sees this little kid with a Jewish star, and he stops his bicycle, he puts it down, and he comes over to me and takes his hat off and bows.
Oh.
And put his hat on back on, got on his bicycle and went on his way.
Oh my.
Can you imagine that?
I can see why that would stay in your memory.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was something worth $1 million. Anyway.
And how bitter to realize that your teacher in the Jewish school is the one who would, you know, say
Right.
such a thing.
It's true, and the conclusion that I've come to myself is that people will do things in order to survive, even terrible things, even making up transports for the Germans, and then being the last one to get sent out of here. Didn't help. But people will do things.
Mm.
People will also do decent things, like this guy with the hat. And another thing I'll tell you about after we got to the camp. So now comes the day we were informed by the Germans that tomorrow morning you are to report to the jail because we're going to take you to a place where you will be happier as Jews to live. And they didn't tell us where that place would be.
Was
But-
somebody come personally at the door and said this?
Somebody knocked on the door.
Was it a German?
A German in uniform. Suffice it to say, a fascinating thing happened in addition that day. We get another knock on the door
Mm-hmm.
from our immediate neighbor, who told us the following, that overnight, over the roof, we should bring to them all of our valuable china, all of our valuable jewelry, and all of our valuable silverware, and if we had them, carpeting if it was valuable. We should bring them over the roof, because these were attached houses, to their house, and they would keep them until we would come back. Not, you know, that's the way they put it, that when we come back, they would give all this back to us.
How did you take that?
Well, we were overwhelmed by the kindness of, but we also expected it, because Holland was a place where Jews came from all over the world as refugees. They came from Spain, you know, the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue in Amsterdam. Holland was known as a place that would accept people from all over the world if they needed to run away from what they had to face.
Well, but
So
you
the
see,
Dutch people were known, and we expected them to be decent human beings.
well, you see, as you're telling this, there's a suspicion that comes to mind of neighbors who would want to have these valuables and not necessarily return them.
That's correct, but that could be in the back of your mind, and a lot of people, interestingly, have said the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Oh, what the heck? I mean, they were just helping you in order to enrich themselves.
Well, one doesn't know, but it is one of those thoughts
That's
that
one
comes
of
to
those
mind.
thoughts.
Yeah,
And it could have entered our minds too, but what brayer, as they say,
Yeah.
we didn't have a brayer, we didn't have a choice.
of course.
Um,
Did you
so
do that?
We did it that
Okay.
night. Now, I can't, I should, there's a plate, there are plates and dishes there, red and white, that you can see.
I see those, yes.
Those were saved.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll tell you later how we got them back.
Okay, okay,
Unbelievable.
okay.
Anyway,
So that night they come and they say,
they helped us take the stuff over the roof to their house. The next day, we went to jail.